free to join me in taking a deep breath in and letting it out. Just breathing in the energy of the evening and letting out the energy of the day. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Those of you that might join me tonight and those of you that might be watching me on the replay. Today is day 28. And those of you that are new to this, I had some people asking me, oh, is this for a class that you're taking? And no, hey Lauren, this is not for a class that I'm taking. This got birthed out of a healing session that I was in. I was in a deep meditative state and I received an intuitive nudge. And the intuitive nudge was, hey, Ileana, the intuitive nudge was telling me that we're asking you to go live 30 days in a row on social media. So ever since then, I made the agreement to follow the guidance, because in the past I had the same message and didn't follow the guidance due to a coach that I was working with who told me that it was too much. And I know that because my work is to connect with, my work, right, first is to always come back to my authentic self, and that changes and morphs, right, as I grow, as my wisdom grows, as I release and take in new things, and then I support other people in connecting to their authentic selves. So because I was receiving the message, it wasn't from somebody outside of me, except a different part of me, my higher self, I am listening. With that being said, today is day 28. I can't believe it. So there's only 2 more days after this. I haven't yet fully decided what I'm going to do to continue this type of conversation. I have some ideas. It's just not all fully done yet. So, day 28 of 30 days, 30 lives in 30 days. So if you've been following me, then you know that yesterday was about talking about the stories that we tell ourselves, right? The unconscious agreements that we make. And hold on one second. I promise I'm going to be really fast, okay? Then we're going to go. Just give me a few minutes. All right, tonight has to be fast. So yesterday I was talking about the stories that we tell ourselves and the unconscious agreements that we make and how to get more conscious about those agreements so that we can become more authentic with ourselves, and how to release the stories and the agreements that we make that don't serve the person that we desire to be, that aligns with our goals moving forward. Oh, you hear the puppy love. Yes, I am petting him with my foot, praying that he will hold on for just a few more minutes. So he's been out plenty of times today, by the way. So that was yesterday, about the stories that we tell ourselves, especially the ones that don't serve us. But we tell ourselves stories all the time, stories that serve us, that help us feel better, that help us align with our goals. And we also tell ourselves stories that don't serve us. And I went into a whole thing about that yesterday. So when I hung up with that live yesterday, what came to me is to talk about, well, what do you do with that, right? So the universe does not like a vacuum. So when we let go of something, we create space for something else to come in. So when we let go of the stories that don't serve us, the stories that don't support where we desire to go and who we desire to be, and as we're growing and we're studying and we're telling ourselves the truth, then we want to create a new story. And as we let go, we create that space to come in, and then we create all the time. And when we create consciously, that's where we step into our power. right? And then we get to decide what's authentic to me now, not what was authentic to me 5 or 10 years ago, right? We get to decide what's authentic to me now. So I just thought about a few ways that I can share that I've done to support me as I grow and create, and how I support my clients doing the same thing, right? So everything that I've done in my personal development path is what I then pass on to my clients and partially my students, right? We go into a lot more depth in my program. So we create a new story. When we create a new story, and we can make a new agreement with ourselves, and also, depending on your belief system, create a new agreement with God or with Source, with nature, with just the power that be, right? Because something created this earth. So whatever it is that you believe in that feels good in your body, and there is no right or wrong here, but making this agreement. So part of it is, as we have, let's say we did a ceremony and we made a declaration, and we were letting go of a certain way of being, or maybe a certain habit, a certain belief, whatever it is you're letting go of, that you're closing this agreement. Maybe, like me, like it was a story that was told to me that I took on because that was my way of being loyal to, none of this is conscious, right? So we sometimes think we're being loyal to the person that we love by agreeing to the story, even if it's at our detriment. And again, this is not something that we're consciously doing, right? So this takes some shadow work. Anyway, after you make the declaration, and then you're practicing calling in a new story, right? So that's where you might want to join me for my manifestation journey day retreat, which I've been doing every year since 2019, and it's been growing and developing, and that's where we really start to embody the things that we are moving towards and creating. And so as we're in the process, right? So let's say you have your vision board, and you're looking at the vision board, and you're looking at the different sections of it, and each week you're working on certain parts of it, or you might be just looking at the overall vibe. And you might notice on certain days, right, if you are a conscious creator, then you are taking time to check in. How am I feeling? What are the words I'm telling myself? What does my energy feel like? Am I eating well? Am I hydrated? Am I talking to myself well? I might have said that already. But anyways, you connect with yourself. And then if you start to notice, like for me, sometimes it'll be like a feeling in my body, like I might have missed what I thought. So I might go back and say, well, what was I thinking that suddenly I have this wave of worry, or this wave of anxiety, or this wave of tension, right? And so we get to the core, we pattern interrupt. So, and the reason why we want to pattern interrupt is because we want to re-embody this new story that we're telling ourselves, right? And sometimes, for some people, it can happen, bam, you make the change and that's it. Like my grandpa, the doctor told him, no more cigars, and he just dropped it like a hot potato, and he never came back to it again. And there are people that can do that with change. But for the majority of us, it takes some repeat, right? So if we're building a new neural pathway, right, meaning that when we think something, it's kind of like putting your finger through the sand at the beach, and every time you put your finger through the sand, oh, hi, thank you, God bless you too, right? So every time we put our finger through the sand, right, the line gets deeper and deeper and deeper. So that's a neural pathway. So as we start to shift and change, we get to build a new neural pathway, but the old neural pathways are deep. So we get to be really loving to ourselves. So I'll speak for myself, right? Because I'm shoulder to shoulder with you. I teach what I learn, and I also get to re-practice, right? I am nowhere perfect. I am not sitting up on the pedestal. It always makes me uncomfortable when people try to do that. And anyway, that's a whole other subject. Let's stay focused because I want to take the puppy out. But the pattern interrupts. So with the pattern interrupt, we're building this neural pathway, right? So we want to build the new neural pathway. So that means telling ourselves a new story. So it can be as simple as like what Louise Hay taught us, which is creating affirmations. But creating affirmations alone, in my opinion, doesn't shift the needle all the way. But it is something that you can do to keep bringing you back into focus, right? So I like to pull from all the different senses, right? So I love the vision board because of the way I teach it. We do so much embodiment work with it that when you look at that vision board, you can remember how you feel when you made it. And then as I said, I like to bring in somatics and when I say as I said, I mean in the previous 27 videos, that I like to bring in somatic work. So through voice, right? So maybe you're saying your affirmation out loud, or maybe as you are bringing in the new story, you might still also at the same time be releasing the old story. So you might do some somatic work like ha, and some of the practices that I've shown you. Sometimes with energy work, sometimes we will snap around our auric field to kind of break it up, right? And break it up, or no, this is not coming in. This is not here anymore. This is not for me. This is no longer my truth. So you open it up so that you can bring in these new thoughts and new actions, follow the new thoughts, right? So you might want to have, your vision board, or you might even want to write out and maybe start with one new thought and get as specific as you can, depending on what you're working on. If you're feeling like a victim, maybe you start to come into, I'm choosing to step into my power. Maybe I am powerful feels like too much of a false statement. So go up the ladder, create something that feels really good, or call in support system to help you create the new vibe. Hey, Gracie, I have to get back to you. I will get back to you. So we talked about the snapping, right? Sometimes it's one clap, like I don't want to do it too loud, but clap with like no, right? So we interrupt and then we call in the new. But we don't want to berate ourselves, right? We want to be super loving. Sometimes, like right now, today is the 7/7 portal. Today is 7/7/24, July 7th. So right now, the big star, which is bigger than our sun, brighter than our sun, is called Sirius, and it is coming in big right now as we're starting to line up and get ready to come into Lionsgate. So with that, we are receiving a lot more light codes, which as you're working on making these changes, right? Maybe you are starting to see the old stories that you've silently agreed to, unconsciously agreed to, and these agreements, and you're doing this work, and you also might start to feel really tired. I know for me, I've been receiving it as tired. I know that there is a point in time where we won't feel so many ascension symptoms as we go through it. Some of us are just more sensitive, and I think perhaps the further you get, I'm guessing, the less symptoms that you will get. Hey, Lola. And so, anyway, with that, as you're making these shifts and changes, you also might want to give yourself that extra rest. What I have found is that I've mentioned this in some of the other videos, that when I feel urgent, like urgent, so the natural reaction is to want to like get more done. Oh my God. The actual thing to do is to stop and slow down, because when you're feeling urgent, anything that you do after that is going to be a mess. Something's going to happen. But when we pause, even for a little bit, we get to start to receive whatever it is that you're receiving. You're receiving light codes, you're receiving wisdom, or you're receiving awareness. because in the context of what I'm talking about tonight, which is yesterday was releasing the stories we tell ourselves that don't serve us, and that we're becoming aware of these unconscious agreements and starting to declare, I disagree, I rescind that agreement. And the next step in tonight's talk is to call in the new agreements. Now you get to write your story. You get to write what it is you desire, what it is you declare, right? And I would say, I'm thinking because my mind is, I'm getting a lot of information right now quickly. And we would love to move away from the word want, because want insinuates that you don't have, right? So the desire, it's like, oh, I love that. I desire, and I'm calling that in, like it's already in my field on a different time, space, dimension, or reality. And then we're just kind of lining up the different timelines because it's already happening on a different timeline. So you are remembering that you're rescinding the old agreement. And if you remember in another video, I talked about an ending is the same thing as a beginning, right? It's the same point in time. So the moment that you rescinded the old agreement, you start to create the new agreement. So just make sure that you're defining it, right? So that might, I know in my experience with myself and my private clients is that it takes time. Sometimes we write it down and then it shifts and morphs over time. Kind of like back to Mr. Coleman, if you saw my video about how I learned to journal, he talked about writing and he talked about germinating. So sometimes you will write your paper, and he always said to put it in a drawer and let it germinate, meaning in this context, if you're writing a new story, just write it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Put it down, go back and look at it, see how it feels for you, get into the vibe of it. Does that feel true? And edit it. Right? And the beautiful thing about vision boards and about setting intentions and about creating these new stories, this new way of embodiment, is that it gets to morph and shift, right? You get to access your feminine energy, right? You don't have to be a biological woman to, right? Every gender has both masculine and feminine qualities. The masculine is the doing and the declaring, and the feminine is the receiving and seeing how it feels and flowing with it and seeing, hey, I want a little more of this and a little less of this. And you get to create it, and you get to, in this creation, you are creating your new story, and you are breaking the chains of what your old programming was. Right? And maybe some of your old programming is exactly what you desire. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if there's stuff in your old programming that feels contracting, that doesn't feel true to you, it's okay to shift and change. I changed my whole career, right? I went to college for graphic design. I was a graphic designer. I was a senior graphic designer. I was an art director. Now I do energy work on people. I do intuitive readings. I was teaching yoga. I teach meditation. I coach people to connect with their intuition, right? So it's okay to shift and change to what is new now, right? Why not? Our bodies shift and change every 7 years. I was also an integrative nutrition health coach. That was how I went into coaching in the first place. And our cells are always changing. There's always death and rebirth in our bodies. And after 7 years, you have a totally different body. Like, there's not a part of you 8 years ago that's in you now. Anyway, so I digress. So, as you are creating your new story, as I mentioned yesterday, I think it was, to remember that when you say, I am, it's like saying a prayer. It's like creating a spell. It is two of the most powerful words that you can say in order to create. And as I mentioned before, when I first started creating affirmations for myself, I am a millionaire, right? So that doesn't even feel true at all, right? When you're at a certain level. So the idea is to go up little bits, right? If you've been feeling like let's say you've been going through like a real winter, like really cocooned and isolating because you're doing the healing work and you want connection now. And so maybe you just say like the next step, like now I'm willing to make some new friends, instead of like now I'm connected with, I have 20 great friends, right? So you want to build it up. And I know I'm just kind of throwing examples in the air, but make it true for you. But just know that the I am statement is so uber powerful, and you can create your desires from that. And the timeline is not always your own. The universe, a lot of times, will know better. So trust the timeline. Decide on your new declaration. Hey, Corey. Decide on your new declaration. And let that declaration be fluid, right? As you are creating your new story, jot it down. Look at it each day. Be soft about it. Maybe you're editing the sentence. Maybe you cross it out in a week and say, nope, I'm doing a new one. Do what feels right to you in your body. Check your body. Rest when you need to, so that your body can catch up with this new story that you're telling yourself, with this new agreement. And then go back to some of the somatic practices, and feel free to message me if you're not sure what I mean by that. You can go back through some of the other videos to do that. But we want to get it into our body, right? So let's say yours is confidence. Like, what does confidence look like? Maybe you just do the Amy Cuddy stance, right? Or the Wonder Woman stance. And if you're not sure what that is, just Google it. Google Amy Cuddy or Wonder Woman stance, because I'll get out of the camera. But and these are the things that you could do, and use breath, right? And if you need to go back to clear, so as you're creating your new story, you might also be going back to the clearing, like in the video from yesterday, like clearing these unconscious agreements. You might even become aware of an agreement that you made that you didn't even realize, like my experience from yesterday. So as you're creating the new stories, this is a fluid process. It's almost like a circle. You might be doing both at the same time, depending on where you are in your process, and it's all perfect. How exciting that you get to create your new story, your new agreement, not one that somebody planted inside of you. And it doesn't have to be with like a rejection, like they did that and that's not true for me. And that might be a part of the process, right? Some anger. Hey, Denise. Anger is a part of the process too. So as you're doing this, if you come back to some of the releasing parts, right, or some of the parts that feel grief or anger, like go ahead and do the somatic practices to fully feel that. Then come back into the I am statements, your new I am statements, and celebrate that. So just know that you're in a flow. Yeah. And again, like for me, in my personal process, like I've learned to also like stop. And sometimes I just lay down and let it all settle in and integrate, right? So when I do energy work on my clients, right, I invite them to integrate, take a bath, let it sit for, right, like I don't see, well, all the thoughts are coming quickly again. Hold on. Right. So with my private energy healing clients, unless they're in a very big healing crisis, I don't typically see them each week. I usually give a week in between or longer, because we want the integration time to happen. When you are my coaching client, I also see people every other week. They stay connected to me through Voxer. So they have a connection with me to help them integrate all the codes that came in during the session. So the same thing that you can do with yourself. As you are releasing these old stories, you will also be processing emotions, and it's so important to not dissociate from them. I know this from experience. I have a lot of experience with dissociating, where I can sit there and I'm in like freeze, and I know that it's happening. And so I've learned to be so patient with myself, and I've learned the somatic practices to help feel it and also not rush it out. And I know that what happens on the other side, and then you get to keep going. All of this is available for all of you and all of us. And me too, I see me too. Thank you, Gracie. And so as we keep going, we keep rebuilding. And eventually those old stories will be just a distant memory where we can give forgiveness, compassion, and understanding. And we get to fully embody these new ways where, like, whoa, I did that? I said that? It was so much easier for me now. I created that. I made that conversation, right? Whatever it is that you're doing that's new. So declare the new story, right? So again, go back and watch day 27, releasing the unconscious agreements. And then you can rewatch today, creating the new agreements with yourself first. Right? And if you want to make an accountability partner, perhaps you have somebody in your life, whether it's a coach, whether it's a clergy person, whether it's if it's a friend, make sure it's a trusted friend that's also doing this work, because a lot of times if one person's doing the work and the other one isn't, they might consciously or unconsciously do things against to hold you back. And I'm sorry to say that that's sometimes true. Most of the time, people don't mean to do that. So if you are declaring a new version of you, I also encourage you to be super choosy about who you share it with, and also it's okay to keep it just between you and God for a little while, you in your journal, you in spirit, whatever it is. Wait, there's a comment. Hi, Felice. Hi. Yes. Thank you. I see yes. And me too. And so sweet. You speak beautifully about these practices. So true. Oh, thank you, guys. I'm so happy this is landing. And this is landing because we're all doing this together, because we are creating a new world together. And you might note it, and right, super choosy. Yes, it is so true, because even people that love you might unconsciously put the kibosh on it. It's like one of the hardest things to say. But that's when we go back to some of the other videos about acceptance. And then that just builds us, it builds our compassion and builds our self resourcing. So it's all here for us. Every challenge that you encounter is all here to strengthen you, to build your wisdom, to build your resilience and your confidence, and build your frequency, so that you can embody these new stories that you're telling yourselves, that the new agreements that you are making with yourself, and that it becomes stronger and more solid and more grounded. And then you keep building from there. So how exciting is that? So I would love to hear, as you integrate tonight's chat, the new story that you're telling yourself. What is the new declaration that you are going to stand in? Is there somebody that can support you in that? If you would like support from me, feel free to send me a message. So allow. And allow it to come in. Don't hold back. Don't hold yourself small anymore. And just keep stepping. And let it be baby steps. I really encourage you to make this declaration a little baby step. Unless you feel like you're ready, do the big steps, I say do it too. Listen to your intuition, and if you're not sure, take the baby steps and make the new declarations, and feel free to share it with me. You can share it with me in private by a direct message, or you can share it in public if you want it to be declared. Know where you are in your process. Again, if you're at the beginning of your process, you might want to keep it a little bit more to yourself, like kind of reading in your journal. And at some point, you'll let it get louder and louder as you feel more and more embodied. Let's check in if there's anything else that wants to come through tonight. And the last message tonight is to remember that this is a choice and that you have the freedom to choose to declare a new story. And if it comes to you, when it comes to you, know that it is for you. It is not just a made-up thing, because otherwise it wouldn't even be in your vibration. You wouldn't even be able to think of it. So trust the stories that are coming in. Trust these new declarations. Trust these visions. And also let go of the time frame. Trust me on that one. Let me look at the comments before I go, and I'm going to take the puppy out. You will become more empowered. That's right. There are no limits. Yeah, Ileana. Loving these. Thank you for sharing, Felice. Oh, Corey, love you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for receiving. So, yay for all of us. And I'm so excited to hear the new declarations that you are declaring for yourselves, the new stories that you're telling yourselves, the new agreements that you are making in your heart with your source, whatever it is that you believe in that's larger than you. And it's going to be so good. I'm so excited. All right. Sending love to all of you. I see you, and I see your auras expanding, and these new declarations are going to support you and everyone around you. Just remember, like, the butterfly effect. All right. Sending so much love. Namaste, everyone.